Hey guys, Wilson here again. My second video of the day, my last of the week. This is going to be the American band Chicago. Started in 1969 as the Chicago Transit Authority, went right through the 80s, well into the 90s. I don't know if they're still around anymore. They turned into a band I did not care about in the late 70s where they were just making, pop songs, but that's okay. They did plenty of good work in their early years, and what I'm going to concentrate on is their work, their first 10 albums. And not that all of those 10 albums are good, but Chicago fans like them. I'm going to use this Rhino Quadio box, which is quad versions of the studio albums, from 69 to 76. I'll tell you about this box, though. I love the box, but they did a screw up on the first printing where side 2 of the first LP of their second album, called Chicago in 1970, was mono on the Blu-ray. And subsequently, the 1975 Chicago's Greatest Hits, the songs from side 2 of Chicago, or Chicago 2, were in mono on that as well. So they had to make, those discs again, the Chicago 2 Blu-ray and the Greatest Hits Blu-ray. And you had to contact Dr. Rhino online, and he sent you out the corrected version, which I did. Last I heard, they were not doing that anymore. So, caveat emptor, buyer beware. If you're going to pick up one of these things, you might be getting one of those first printings. I don't know. Anyways, Chicago Transit Authority. Now, I've got that album several times. I'm not spending long periods of time looking for CDs anymore. I've got the old Sony Master Sound one that came out in the 90s. I've got the Mobile Fidelity, I guess it was an SACD. Couldn't find them. So, that's okay. I will just use the ones that are here in this Quadio box. This is what it looks like. All right. That's the back of it. These are nice little reproductions in this Quadio box of the albums. This one didn't come with anything, I don't think. No. So this album is something of a classic. I don't love everything on it. I'll tell you that. I can just look at the back of the box here for the song titles, but it's got so many great things on there. It's got to, exist as one of their best albums. Introduction's a great song. Does anybody really know what time? Robert Lamb was the secret, ingredient of early Chicago. I tended to like his stuff the best. Does anybody really know what time it is? Beginnings, Questions, 67 and 68. Those are all masterpiece songs. And Introduction, the Terry Kath song, is great too. Listen is good. Poem 58, and then Freeform Guitar. This is the issue I have with this album. Well, this album particularly, Terry Kath's overplaying. Now, I know I'm in the minority on that. I know that people think that Terry Kath was a great guitar player. Hendrix praised him. Hendrix praised a lot of guitar players, though. But I think that when a solo just goes on and on and on for minutes, it better have something to say. And to these ears, I just get a little bored when Terry does it for too long. South California Purple's okay. I'm a Man was a great version of the Spencer Davis Group song. Not as good as Steve Winwood could sing it, but good enough. I heard it on the radio all the time growing up. And then the rest of the stuff is just okay. So it's a double LP, at least one LP of which is fantastic, and the other half is still fairly good. So does that make for a classic album? I don't know. People think of Chicago Transit Authority as one of the best double LPs of the 60s. So there you go. Decide for yourself. But it's nevertheless one of their greatest albums. All right, 1970, Chicago, or Chicago 2, as fans will say it, but nowhere on here does it say Chicago 2. Okay, so this is the one I was telling you about where the original Blu-ray on side 2, it was in mono and not Quadio. So they had to fix it. This is the fixed version. This is another one of their greatest albums ever. If the Chicago Transit Authority is not their greatest album, this is. Cut for cut, it can't be beat. Let's go over it. Moving In, The Road, Poem for the People, In the Country, Wake Up Sunshine. None of those songs are hits, but they're all great. Make Me Smile was massive. So Much to Say, So Much to Give, Anxiety's Moment, West Virginia. These are all good songs. Color, then we're in the big suite now. Color My World was huge. Fancy Colors, 25 or 64 is probably my favorite Chicago song. That's a great Terry Kath riff, by the way. Prelude, AM Morning. Yeah, the whole thing is good. Where do we go from here? They were kind of political in these days too, something that they completely abandoned as they realized they can make more money singing love songs. So probably the first two albums are the most political. First one probably having an edge over Chicago. But hey, you want their two greatest albums? Most people will tell you it's these two. All right, am I holding that up right? Okay. I'm going to say right here at the beginning of this video that my 3 fave Chicago albums are the first 3. Chicago 3, which doesn't have massive hits, like the first 2, is still a solid, these are all double albums, is still a solid double record. Well, there you go. Sing a Mean Tune. Loneliness is just a word. What else can I say? I Don't Want Your Money. These songs are Free was a hit. These songs are not popular, so you're not going to know them unless you... I'm trying to think of anything I've heard on the radio. That's probably it. Progress, yeah, okay. But it's solid. And who released 3 double albums in a row? That was insane. And the horn arrangements on these early Chicago albums are just killer. When I was a kid, I often compared Chicago to Blood, Sweat, and Tears. I mean, they're both horn-driven bands. You had the Electric Flag before Blood, Sweat, and Tears. But, or did you? They were both 1968. First Electric Flag album was in 67. That was a psychedelic soundtrack. Anyways, but Blood, Sweat, and Tears only kept up that high degree, of quality in 68 for their first 2 albums. They didn't even do an album in 69. When they came back in 1970 with their 3rd album, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, it was just okay. Whereas Chicago was at a peak in 69 and 70s. So, yeah, I ended up being a bigger Chicago fan than a BS&T fan. There's a good documentary on Blood, Sweat, and Tears right now, and you can stream about a tour that they did in Russia, I believe. Anyways, in 71, Chicago had Chicago 4, which was a ridiculously long live album. Folks, I don't even remember how many. Was it 4 LPs, 3 LPs? I never had the album growing up. I just have this CD set, and I've only successfully played all of this once in my life. I've thrown it on from time to time, but it's just so much to... And there's a box set of the shows recorded for this album, which is, I don't know how many CDs it is, but I actually, for like a second, thought about picking up, but I realized, that's going to be something that you're going to play one time, if you can get through it, and file it away, and it's like, don't waste your money. So I didn't. Anyways, Chicago 4, 1971, the longest live album that any rock band that I know of in the 70s released. This actually was in Paul Gambaccini's book from the late 70s of Rock Critics' Choice, greatest albums of all time. I forget who voted for this, but to put it in there. But, it's a little silly. It's a little overkill. But if you're a hardcore fan, you might like it. Okay, Chicago 5, 1972. I think that's it. God, there's not even a 5 on here. All right, hope I'm holding up the right one. The cool thing about these audio discs is if anything came, any inserts came with the original albums, they reproduced it. So there's a poster for you and You know. I remember a friend of mine in the 70s must have had this album because he had this on his wall. Right? So, yeah. You know how Piro Cetera became this big deal, you know, solo artist having lots of hits in the 80s and kind of the voice of Chicago. But he was just another guy at the time. Well, I'm really looking to make sure this is Chicago 5 and the hit for Varese. It doesn't even say on the Blu-ray Chicago 5. But now I'm going to check. Yes, it is. Okay. Okay, so Chicago 5, not as good to these years as the previous studio albums. All is well now that you're gone. The dialogue songs were hits, but not on the Greatest Hits album in 75. While the City Sleeps is good. Siding the Park is massive. So, you know, good, but not, I think, to, you know, on the level of the first three. But there you go. Always well recorded. These albums all just sound great. Okay. Chicago 6. This is 73. All right. Let's see. Does it come with anything? Not much. All right. Yeah, a bit better than 5. Let's see what's on 6. Critics' Choice, Just You and Me was a big hit. Jenny Was This World, Coming to Something in a City Changes People. That's a good number. That's like a deep cut. That's really worthy. Hollywood, remember that one too. And Feeling Stronger Every Day. So a bit better than Chicago 5. I have another Mobile Fidelity version of one of these albums. Now I can't remember what it is. It's either 6 or it's 7, but anyways. Oh, and here's 5, just a regular CD of that. And here's a regular CD of Chicago 3. I don't know why I still have these, but anyways, when I want to hear their music now, I'm playing these Quadio discs. So anyways, there you go. Chicago 6, 73, I want to say. Better than Chicago 5. Chicago 7. This was the double again, right? Because they had returned to making single albums. A lot of people like this one a lot. I don't know if I still don't think it's as good as the first 3, but it is one of the standouts. So what we got here? Prelude to Air, Devil's Sweet, Italian from New York, Hanky Panky, Lifesaver, Happy Man. I've Been Searching So Long, of course. Song of the Evergreen. I'm just trying to go with the ones I remember. Wishing You Were Here is one of their all-time classics. They got some of the Beach Boys singing that with them. Call on Me. Yeah, you know, so yeah, it's again another wonderfully recorded Chicago album with a few hits. So still, you know, the early 70s, so they're still pretty much in their heyday. They kept going along with the numbers, you know. They didn't start calling albums with regular titles until well after the period that I'm going to be showing you in this video. So this is Chicago 8. This is another single again. What came in here? Oh yeah, it came with a little iron. You can iron this onto your clothes. Another poster. They always have these funny looking photo sessions. All right, so anyways, Chicago 8. They're starting to kind of get a little bland now. Any Way You Want, Brand New Love Affair, parts 1 and 2. Never Been in Love Before. See, these songs, I'm having a hard time even remembering them. Hideaway Till We Meet Again. Harry Truman was a hit, but again, not on the Greatest Hits album. And then the classic Old Days, which is one of their last, I think, really epic 45s. And after this, after Chicago 8 in 1975. Put this away. You had their classic Chicago 9 or Chicago's Greatest Hits. Everybody had this album in the 70s. It's wall-to-wall classic Chicago. I'll go over all the numbers for you. 25 or 6 to 4. Always should have been the opening track on a Chicago album. Does anybody really know what time it is? Color My World, Just You and Me, Saturday in the Park, Feeling Stronger Every Day, Make Me Smile. Did I mention that from the second album? Wishing You Were Here, Call on Me, I've Been Searching So Long, and Beginnings. I mean, not in chronological order. Few greatest hits albums in those days were, but, you know, actually, that one almost could not be any better. And the last one we're going to do here is Chicago 10. This is still the Terry Kath era, but they're starting, well, they've already started. They're still continuing their downward slide. They're still kind of bland. Lots of stuff in here. Looks like a chocolate bar. And yet another poster. All right. So yeah, if you can get this Quadio box with that second pressing of the Chicago 2 album and the Greatest Hits album with, you know, the Quadio mixes, get it. And if you don't mind having just those songs in mono, I'd still get the box. Anyways, Chicago 10, probably the weakest album in here. Once or Twice, You Were on My Mind, Skin Tight. See, I don't even remember these songs. Another Rainy Day in New York City. I like that one. Wow, there's not a huge song on here? Wow. Oh well, unless I forget one. Anyways, people say that when Terry Kath died, you know, the band never recovered. But I'm actually going to say they weren't up to speed even before he died, you know? But Chicago, never, wrapping up my thoughts here, never a critic's darling, not even in the beginning when their albums were very popular. And they seemed, you know, to be relevant, not just a purveyor of pop. But I think that their best music holds up now. I mentioned, you know, that Chicago 9, the Chicago's Greatest Hits album, being a classic compilation, but you could make a better one just from, you know, that same era, from the late 60s to the mid 70s. Because that Chicago Greatest Hits album doesn't even have all their top 40 hits. You know, Harry Truman and Dialogue and whatnot, maybe some more. And they have some really good deep cuts too. Like Introduction, the first song on Chicago Transit Authority. So you could make, I know because I've made one, you can make an even better comp than that 1975 Greatest Hits album. So to the point that you think their best Chicago songs almost hold up to the best of almost anybody in the 70s. But, you know, you might get tired of hearing that same sound. But they could really come up with really unique horn arrangements. They had a pop nous that was almost second to none. But they just, you know, the longer that you stay in business, the more you become a slave to the consumerism. You want to, every time you go to the studio, you know, the label's pressuring you to have another hit to make money. That's what the people who are paying to see you in concert want to hear and whatnot. And earlier, they were album artists, you know, those double LPs. After a while, they just became, you know, I mean, certainly by the 80s, purveyors of kind of bland, middle of the road, top 40 material. But remember them for what they were initially, not what they became. Matt signing off. Till next time.